are here at STK, and I'm with Abby White, the corporate pastry chef, and today we're making a childhood favorite that's pretty exciting. What are we making today?
We're making a chocolate Pop-Tart today.
Can you make a Pop-Tart at home? How does it compare?
I do a slight version of it. It's a flaky crust, not so much like the dense that they have. So it's a twist on a little pie pocket and a Pop-Tart.
So what do you need to get started? Is there any special equipment that you need to make a Pop-Tart?
You can make it with your hands. It's a lot easier with a KitchenAid, which we're gonna do. And
stand mixer.
A rolling pin and basics. That's all you need.
All right, great. So what do we need to get started?
So I'm gonna start with the dough. We have our flour, sugar, and salt. You add that first. Then you're gonna add it to the KitchenAid.
And how much flour, how much sugar, how much salt?
It's about 3 cups of flour with 2 tablespoons sugar and a teaspoon of salt. You just want to not have bland dough, essentially, because the flavor is going to be in the filling.
Okay.
You're going to just mix that around in your mixer. And what you need is very cold butter. And here I've put the butter into small cubes, because after you mix it, you want pea-sized chunks of butter. That's going to make the dough really flaky, so it's very important.
Cold and cut up.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We're just going to dump it in there. You don't have to be scared. And then after a few minutes, you're going to see it come together slightly. And you want to add, here we have an egg and 2 tablespoons of buttermilk. And the buttermilk's just going to add a nice richness. You can use water, you can use milk, you can use whatever you like.
But the buttermilk makes it extra special.
My grandma used it, that's what I use. The dough is going to come together in a slight crumbly ball, which is what you want, and then you're just going to wrap it in plastic wrap and put it in the refrigerator for about an hour until you roll it out.
So we have our dough. It's been in the refrigerator for an hour. Why is it so important to refrigerate the dough instead of taking it right out of the mixer?
Because it's important that the butter stays as cold as possible.
So then what do we do? Now is the fun part.
We're going to roll out the dough. You want it to be about a ½ inch thick. So I just kind of push it down with my hands, and then you want to do that. And you just roll it out, and after you make a couple moves, you just want to move it to make sure it's not sticking.
Right.
And
that's where the flour comes in.
Yeah, you don't need a lot.
Right. You don't want to do too much, right?
No, you don't, because you don't want to add more flour to the dough. You just want to keep it moist and delicious as possible.
And how do you know when you've gotten to the right thickness?
I essentially just use like my thumb. I know that if it's at my thumbnail, then I'm at the right thickness.
And right, because I mean, this is it is a little thick. Like you don't want it to be so thin that it can't hold in all the deliciousness that you're.
If it's too thin, when it bakes, the chocolate will ooze out of the top, which may be good for some people, but
but isn't the look we're going for.
You can just use a pizza cutter if you don't have one of these handy contraptions, but you just want to cut them into 3x4 rectangles.
And is the importance with this for them to just be equal?
Yeah, and if you're making them at home, you don't have to worry about being too serious. We can just use a pizza roller if you have one at home.
Yeah, it'll work as long as you kind of smush the pieces together.
Yeah, and then you can always use a small knife to trim the edges.
And these are a lot smaller than you would think. Is that because it expands?
It does expand, and then this is my handy dandy chopstick that I'll use to push them together.
Easy.
Yes.
That's something people will have at home.
Yes. So you would never think that you could use a chopstick in baking. You just want to separate your doughs. You can use egg yolk, a whole egg, wash, whatever you have at home. I'm just using some egg yolks here, and you want to brush.
And does the temperature of the egg yolk matter, like the butter?
No, it's just like a glue. It's natural.
So just on one side?
Just on the one side. I'm gonna take the ganache.
And so what is this particular ganache?
The ganache, this is just chocolate, heavy cream, and butter. You want to melt the chocolate and the butter together and then add the hot heavy cream and whisk it till it's together.
Easy.
For fun, you can add flavoring. I added peppermint to this one.
Oh, amazing. So you can kind of add any oils or anything to kind of give it whatever flavor you want.
Yes.
How do you pipe it into the
You just want to pipe like essentially a rectangle.
So a lot of ganache here.
Yeah.
We're not skimping.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
We're calling this chocolate for a reason.
Yes. Because it's going to melt and spread out essentially throughout, but you don't want it to fall. If you have an ice cream scoop, you can scoop it in there if you prefer. However, it works for you.
You don't have a pastry bag.
Yes.
Perfect.
So then you're going to just take the next layer and you kind of push it down with your fingers. Then you take your chopstick and you just want to do the edges to make sure that they're crimped together. And there you have one.
Can I try one?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, and the ganache really stays as long as you put it in the middle.
Yep. If you have a ravioli stamp, that'll work also.
Oh, fun.
I don't know who does that.
A square giant square ravioli
So
stamp.
then before you bake, you just take more of your egg wash just to give it some nice color. You're gonna brush over the top. And they actually bake very quickly. You wanna bake them at 350 for 15 minutes and take them out and you're done.
So we've had our Pop-Tarts in the oven at 350 for 15 minutes. They're perfect at this point. So what do we do now? Do we let them cool?
You want to let them cool for about 10 minutes. You still want them a little warm when you glaze, just because you want it to ooze and be all delicious. But here we have our chocolate glaze, which is also just chocolate butter. We added a little corn syrup to make it shiny and milk. And you're going to do it essentially the same way you would do the ganache filling. It's just going to be a little bit less firm so that you can spread it if you need to or whatever.
And if you wanted to use frosting or something else, people use that?
You can use jelly, you can use really whatever. And I'm just going to go over the top.
And again, getting pretty thick. We want a lot of the chocolate.
Yeah, you don't want to miss the flavor, and you essentially have a decent amount of dough, which you wouldn't think so because it's actually pretty small, but you don't want to just feel like you're eating only dough.
Right.
And then I just take a spatula and just kind of rough out my edges, smooth around. And then I just melted a little white chocolate for a contrast of color and just drizzle over the top. You know, I did peppermint, so I could put peppermint on top. You could put peanuts if you do peanut butter. You can sprinkles if it's a kid's party.
Sky's the limit.
It is your own oyster here.
I like how we're pretending like this is for kids when really it's just for us.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for
welcome.
teaching us how to make Pop-Tarts. And obviously, if you want more of Abby's creations, you can come here to SDK. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.